I never planned to buy a haunted house. Nobody does, I guess. But that's what happened last summer when I decided to leave New York and escape the noise for a while. I just quit my job, ended a messy relationship, and was looking for solitude. Or at least something that didn't remind me of people. The listing came up one night while I was scrolling through real estate sites with a beer in hand. Historic lakeside home, 4 bedrooms, wraparound porch, vintage charm. The price made me blink. It was ridiculously cheap, almost insulting considering the lake view. The photos showed an elegant but forgotten Victorian house with ivy crawling up its porch columns like veins on an old hand. It looked like it had a story to tell. I just didn't realize it would start whispering directly to me. The realtor, Mr. Collins, was a thin, nervous man who looked like he hadn't slept properly since the 80s. When I met him in person, he avoided eye contact and fumbled with the keys. "Want to leave before dark," he muttered, half under his breath. I laughed it off, but he didn't. "People don't stay long in this one," he added. "Why's that?" I asked. He looked at the house like it might answer for him. "It remembers things," he said simply. I didn't know what that meant, but I was too intrigued and stubborn to care. That first night, I didn't even unpack properly. I threw my sleeping bag down in the living room, right in front of the big fireplace. The house was quiet, except for the occasional creak from the wood settling. The air smelled faintly like dust and rain-soaked earth. I told myself the place just needed warmth, noise, and a bit of life to feel like home again. Around midnight, I started hearing it. A soft tapping sound, rhythmic, precise, like someone running their fingernails down the wall in the hallway. I sat up and listened. It stopped the moment I turned on my flashlight. That's when the whispering began. It was faint, a man's voice, maybe 2 rooms away. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was pleading, urgent. I followed it through the corridor until I reached the parlor, the same one that overlooked the lake. The voice stopped abruptly. I laughed nervously, convincing myself it was just wind or the lake air seeping through cracks in the old plaster. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching me. The next morning, sunlight filtered through lace curtains that looked older than any living person. I explored room by room, ornate doorknobs, faded wallpaper, clawfoot tubs, everything from a different century. Then I found the mirror. It hung in the dining room, its surface mottled and dull. When I wiped away a layer of grime, I froze. For a split second, I saw a figure standing behind me, a man in a dark suit, eyes hollow, lips moving soundlessly. I spun around. No one. That image stuck with me all day like an aftertaste. Curiosity got the better of me. I drove into town, stopped at the local library, and asked the old clerk if she knew anything about the house on Lakehurst Road. Her face changed immediately. She lowered her voice. "That'd be the Halcroft place," she said. "People around here stay away from it." I asked why. "Because it's cursed," she replied flatly. Then, as if she regretted saying too much, she pointed me toward a cabinet full of old newspaper archives. I spent hours reading until I found the story. August 3rd, 1923, local banker missing, family found dead. The man's name was William Halcroft. He disappeared one stormy night. His wife and daughter were discovered lifeless in the parlor. Locals believed he killed them, but his body was never found. The town sealed the house for decades. When I drove back that evening, a fog had rolled in from the lake. The house loomed out of it like something remembering its own tragedy. That night, I barely slept. The whispering returned, only this time it was clearer. The same words, over and over. I didn't do it. I grabbed my flashlight, heart racing, and followed the voice again. It led me to the grandfather clock in the hallway. The strange part? The clock wasn't running, but its pendulum swayed faintly. When I got closer, the glass face fogged over from the inside, and a faint handprint appeared on it, pressed from within. Then the hands spun violently backward and stopped at 12:17 a.m. At that exact second, the front door slammed open.
Wind roared through the corridor, scattering old papers and dust.
My flashlight flickered and died. The only sound left was my heartbeat, or dive, and then beneath it, a new sound. Dripping water. It was coming from the basement. I shouldn't have gone down there. Every instinct screamed not to, but something about that voice felt desperate, not evil, like it was asking for help. The basement door creaked open with a groan that sounded almost alive. I descended the narrow wooden stairs, each step protesting under my weight. The air smelled of wet soil and rust. My light barely reached the far corner, but I saw it, a small dugout pit maybe 3 feet deep. Inside lay a decayed wooden box. When I opened it, I found bones, small, fragile, and a locket resting on top. Inside the locket was a faded photograph of a woman and a little girl. The initials WH were carved into the back. Suddenly footsteps echoed above me. Heavy, deliberate. Someone was walking through the living room.
I froze, every muscle in my body tense. Who's there?
I yelled, but the only answer was the whispering again. Louder this time, overlapping voices. She did this.
She did this. I stumbled back upstairs, clutching the locket.
When I reached the parlour, the air had gone cold. Frost crept across the window panes, and the mirror was fogged once more. This time, I didn't need to wipe it. The reflection showed me everything. A woman stood near the fireplace, her long dress torn, her eyes hollow with guilt. A child clung to her skirt, silently crying. Behind them appeared the man again, the same one from before. He raised a trembling hand and pointed toward the front door. I turned. Outside, the fog glowed faintly under the moonlight, and in the damp earth I saw footprints, one set leading toward the lake. I followed them, my breath clouding in the night air. The lake was still, the moon perfectly mirrored on its surface. Then I saw it, something metallic glinting beneath the shallow water. I reached in and pulled it out. A revolver, old and rusted but unmistakably real. Back inside, I examined the weapon. The initials WH were carved into the grip.
My hands shook.
Maybe Halcroft had been murdered after all. Maybe he'd been buried down there, accused of something he didn't do. At dawn, I called the local sheriff's office. They excavated the basement later that week. The remains they found matched the description of William Halcroft. His skull cracked, likely from blunt force trauma. The coroner's report ruled out suicide. The town was stunned. The newspaper headline read, "Truth emerges after a century, the Halcroft mystery solved." But the story didn't end there. 2 weeks later, after I'd left the house and moved into a small apartment in the city, I received a brown envelope with no return address. Inside was the same silver locket, cleaned, polished, shining like new, and a note written in elegant handwriting that simply said, "Thank you for setting me free." No signature. That night, as I placed the locket on my bedside table, my digital clock flickered for a second. The time froze at 12:17 a.m. Then came the sound, soft, rhythmic, tapping, from inside the wall, and a whisper so close it brushed against my ear. "Now it's your turn to remember."